Thank you. All right. Dr. Steve, just press your button. There's an echo. That's all right. Sorry. So we're now back into public session. I'll just invite any further comments that anybody has while we're now back in public session, and then I'm going to come on to consideration of the recommendations we got in front of us. So now's the chance if anybody wants to make any comment and have it open to the public part of the recording. Councillor Drew. Oh, sorry.
To Councillor Churchman.
Councillor Churchman first, and then Councillor Drew. Sorry.
I just feel that local government association is not part of the government. It is set, obviously, that we have to have local government, but the employees, our employees as the Isle of Wight Council, are not employees of the government. Therefore, I find it quite incredible that the government can dictate what happens to our employees' pensions, rights, etc. And I have said this before, my only regret about leaving Brexit was in Europe, no government is allowed to interfere with pensions of the people of the state. It is this government alone that has taken over this role of telling us what our employees what happens to the pensions. And of course, I'm afraid I just see this, they're short of money, so they're going to plunder ours. Other people might not agree with me, but there is no other reason for this government to have carried on as they are. And of course, the next step will be that we will be told we have to provide X percentage of our funds to fund whatever they decide. So I want it made quite plain that, as I said, in my opinion, it should be illegal for the government to take over the administration of the pensions of our employees. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Churchman, thank you for that comment. I think many of us would follow that. It is, of course, not the first move that's been made regarding pensions recently. We've seen issues regarding inheritance of pensions and spousal pensions and taxation relating to pensions. So the government involvement is continuing to grow, and I think it's reasonable to anticipate that that will continue when this bill finally comes out. Councillor Drew.
Thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to echo what Councillor Churchman said and the point that Councillor Blake made earlier, which is the time frame surrounding this. I think irrespective of how you view this, and I very much do not view this from a partisan political basis. I thoroughly objected to the proroguing of Parliament because I believed it was illegal. I would suggest that I personally believe the government's approach broaches on that in this regard, that the notion that we have a choice is entirely specious. We do not. We are being told that we need to make a decision within a time frame which is entirely unreasonable. There is no objective reason as to why this is being foisted upon us within the time frames, where more detail could, if nothing else, at the very least, salve local concerns and obviously the concerns of beneficiaries of pensions, because notwithstanding the fact that obviously the council has a duty to provide that defined benefit, ultimately any failure in the fund falls upon taxpayers. Ultimately, it will be taxpayers who have to provide that in the event that there is an underperformance. Central government have been very keen, and I believe keen is the word that has been promulgated throughout the guidance that they have given us, for us to decide locally. And the question is, well, why do they want us to decide locally? Why is there such a huge amount of emphasis upon that? It's been pushed back onto us, notwithstanding the decision of full council. And equally, I would pause and look at the phrasing surrounding local investment, that government strongly encourages local investment to be made. Now, you could potentially see that as a good thing. That's a separate issue. The point is, why is government so strongly and keenly requiring an element of subsidiarity, as opposed to, notwithstanding the format that this has taken, where, as we've said before, they are essentially holding a gun to our head? Why are they keen to emphasize that? And I will say why. It's simply because they know that they are on incredibly sticky grounds, legally speaking, if they seek to impose upon us an investment mandate, which then goes wrong. If they are essentially giving investment advice by dictating, then they will carry the can if and when it goes wrong. That is why, if members of the public look through all of the guidance surrounding this and they see those words very strongly emphasized, it's because it's a carve out, it's a way for them to avoid responsibility, and that is the difficulty that the Pension Committee faces itself approaching. And I think everyone here has rehearsed those myriad concerns. It is an absolute disgrace.
Thank you for those very forceful words. Councillor Stevens, you've been very quiet for a long time, so it's a pleasure to hear you contributing.
Taking it all in and looking at the situation that's been pushed upon the pension fund, indeed all pension funds. It's not our doing. It's not what I think the ambition of the Isle of Wight pension fund was looking for. But I think that, you know, a positive from this, and I think the negativity is there to be seen with regard to central government pushing these things forward with quick turnaround times and short time scales. The positive thing from my point of view, and I hope from other members can see it, is that the work that's been carried out and undertaken by our team of officers, and indeed Hyman's Robertson as well, to give us a platform on whereby we can move forward with recommendations, and a sound one, as sound as we can, we can move in a positive way with this, is to be applauded. And I think thank you very much over a period of time to give us the information that we've needed, give us the advice we needed, and the advice, quite rightly, has been questioned. You would expect an element of scrutiny to come into a committee's workload, and I think the scrutiny's been undertaken in a how can I say, sometimes a little bit more aggressive than others, but it's actually fed into the process quite well, and I feel sure that as we move forward, employers, schemes, etc., within the Isle of Wight Pension Fund, and indeed the members of those schemes, will understand that we've undertaken our role in an extremely responsible way, and I think that should be held paramount. So I want to thank fellow members here for moving in the way they have. I think that, you know, looking at the route with that's been laid out before us, then I shall be going with the recommendations through council. I see no other way that we can take this forward in a purposeful and responsible way. Thank you.
Does anybody else have anything they'd like to say before we move? So I'll just add my own comments, waiting to the end. And it's very clear that this represents a very unusual move of government actively involving themselves in other people's money, where they're actively forcing us to take actions which we would not otherwise take, which are suboptimal to our investment strategy, and the government, in their role here as a disruptor of our normal course of events, is quite a significant departure from the level of government involvement, which has principally been regulatory hereunto, into one which is a direct intervention into our activities. So people have made references to this being a gun to our head, and I think it is. It's a threat. We are taking decisions under threat, a degree of coercion which is exceptional, particularly where we are held as trustees on behalf of those 18,500 beneficiaries. And we are being forced to take decisions suboptimal to the investment fund which provides their pension in life. We've discussed at some length the implications for the affiliated bodies, and we've run into discussions as well about legal and regulatory issues, all of which play a part. But I think we have to take decisions, whether we like them or not. Our decisions, though, today are limited. They are limited simply to making recommendations effectively to the full council, who reviewed this topic only very recently, and upon who representations have been made to rehear that. And our question is, do we recommend a position back to full council for them to reconsider the matter? And that's where we are. So I'm going to turn now to the recommendations that we've got and open some discussion and debate on these, because we can take them as they are, and I'll take them individually, or we can suggest modifications to them during the process. So before I do that, does anybody have anything generically to say about the recommendations? Yeah. Just made some other comments to go with them, which I was looking up. But here we are. So the first section I'll come through, starting with item 9. They're paragraph headings rather than individual numbered recommendations, is a note. So a note that the committee notes that access is winding up.
What page?
18. So we note that access is winding up and that it won't be able to manage this. In reality, of course, the funds which are invested in access will in some regard continue, and we have investments within that portfolio which cannot be exited within that time frame. So particularly some of the property portfolio and others. So the reality is we recognise here that access is winding up. And I'm going to take these individually. Is everybody content with that wording as it is? If so, I'm going to move all of these individually from the chair, by the way. And given that they're not motions, I'm not too sure what this distinction is nowadays. They're all resolutions, and this is recommendations. So I'm going to move that this is, look for changes to the wording of this one first. Councillor Lever.
Nothing about that in particular one, but can I, instead of just going through them one by one, are there any that anybody's got would like to change, or if not, is there any reason to take them?
I have some that I would like word changes on. So I'll move recommendation number 9 on page 18. Look for a seconder for that. Councillor Lever, thank you very much. Is everybody happy to recognise that access is winding up? Show of hands, please. That's unanimous. Thank you very much. The second one relates to the pension bill, noting the pension bill is currently going through Parliament, and it specifies that we are to, well, at least the current version, I guess the wording should be, but I think that's an aside. that we are to participate in an access pooling company, which is an FCA regulated body. We all know that. We've read that many, many times. Does anybody have any changes that they'd like to propose to item number 10? Otherwise, I'll move that and look for a seconder. Councillor Lever, thank you very much. All those in favour of noting item number 10? That's unanimous. Thank you very much. Item number 11, noting that the government has set a deadline. Well, we don't know if it's a deadline now, do we? It's what was the word you used, Chris, earlier? All right. As provide, should we change that to as provided an invitation to respond of? Although I think from Councillor Stewart's view, we know that it's really a gun or a stick in his case. I think we got onto the gun a bit later. So we'll change that to be an invitation to respond. On 3rd of September, we didn't, of course. So does apart from that small change to the word deadline, does anybody have anything to change on that one? Okay.
But to us that did use the word deadline,
They did.
that they have used that in correspondence to funds. Yes. Yes.
Okay, we'll revert to deadline then. Let's emphasize the word dead every time we comment on the issue. Deadline. So I'll move that. Look for a seconder for that one. Councillor Lever again. Everybody in favour of noting that one? Good. That's unanimous too. Number 12 then. Noting the government reaffirmed that if we do not make a decision, then it's likely that they are going to pull the trigger and bad things will happen. I'll move that and look for a seconder.
Point of suggesting somewhat, well, maybe not quite mischievously, but it certainly goes to the ire that I feel. I would quite like to have, and I appreciate that it might be straying too far, that committee notes and deprecates that government have reaffirmed, etc., etc. Because I feel that actually it does reflect in a more official way the views of this committee, and I think there is a public question of transparency and views, and I think it's all to the good of democracy.
So adding before at the beginning of that one, the government, the committee notes and deprecates the government have reaffirmed.
I'll second that.
All right. So everybody happy with that amendment to this one? Please raise your hand. That passes. We'll now vote on that becomes a substantive recommendation number 12 on this. I'll propose that as the modified version of 12. Look for a seconder. Councillor Drew this time. Everybody in favour of that modified version of the recommendation? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Right, not quite unanimous. Oh, 6. Okay, I get the nod from the glasses. That's unanimous as well. Number 13 then, also to note that the government has noted the current absence, which we're all aware of, that they've noted that we haven't made such an in-principle decision. Goes without saying really, but I'll move that as a fairly obvious one. Councillor Brake seconded it quickly enough. All those in favour of the next one? That's unanimous too. Thank you very much. To note that the local pension board discussed the matter and strongly advised the pension fund make a decision, which they did. They didn't say what we should make a decision for, but that we should make a decision. That's a truism, I suppose, in many ways. I'll move that one. Look for a seconder for that one. Councillor Stewart jumped in. Everybody in favour with 14. That's unanimous. Good. 15. That all other 10 funds have made an in-principle decision. That's a truism too. So I'll note that. And Councillor Lever, everybody in favour of that one? That's good. That's unanimous too. The next one we're asked to note is the government policy on pensions pooling has cross-party support at national level. I'm not too sure. I know it's got some degree of, I guess you might know, Nick, on, I don't know what the Liberal Party in Parliament's view on this is. I've never even seen one. Don't know.
This was initially brought forward by the previous government, so I assume that that's why they're saying it's.
Yeah,
I
So Kirsty, can you advise, and I'll come back to the committee members. So I know that it was, the Conservatives had the view on this before and they were seeking it, but perhaps their version of it was different. But your input, please.
All I would observe is that there's been very active debate about the pension schemes bill in across the board, but to my knowledge, there has not been there are no substantive amendments to the fundamental principles that you will be following, you know, the FCA regulation and what have you. So I think that's a fair comment to make.
Okay. Councillor Drew. Oh, Joe.
I was just going to question the relevance of this to the recommendations. Is this something we need to?
We should strike it, I think.
I just don't understand the.
Okay,
Yeah.
so we've got a proposal to strike 16. All those in favour of striking 16 is? Yes. Why are these truisms needed even, I suppose, is the question.
Yeah, the only reason it was included was because it was part of the conversation that we had with government, and government wanted us to be aware that if there were any particular political considerations around this, that it had cross-party support. So it was just to alert, make sure that members were aware of that. If you wish to strike it, that's.
I don't think it's material. So the proposal is to strike it. All those in favour of striking it? That passes. Thank you. Now we come on to the meat, which is the committee agrees. So item number 17, to support a recommendation to full council that an in-principle decision is made to join the central pool, and that this is confirmed to central government. Does anybody have any proposed changes to the wording of that motion? Well, not motion, that item 17. So it says
Could you repeat that?
the committee agrees to support a recommendation to full council that an in-principle decision is made to join the central pool, and that this is confirmed to central government. I don't think there's a lot of point, you know, on the basis of having a gun to our head, the committee agrees, which is the reality of the situation, just for the recording. So I'll propose that and look for a seconder. Councillor Lever was first in. All those in favour of 17 here? So I'm going to join that we push this recommendation to full council, because at the end of the day, it has to be a full council decision that makes it. So that will give us 4. Those against? And those abstaining? 3. Okay. So item 18, to support a recommendation to full council that delegated authority be given to the Fund 151 in consultation with the chair of the pension committee to take any action, blah, blah, blah. We have in the past changed this word in consultation to say in agreement with. That means that I can come back and consult with you guys on each individual point if I feel it appropriate. But so my proposal here is that we change the word in consultation to be in agreement with, and I'll look for a seconder for that. Councillor Blake, oh, lots of hands going up quickly.
Before you vote on it, there's just it's an entirely pragmatic recommendation that's put forward. The number of things that we have to deal with in terms of negotiating memorandum of understandings, negotiating the arrangements for pooling, exiting. It's simply a pragmatic exercise, really, which in the normal course of events you would expect an officer to undertake, as is the case in all other funds recommendations that have gone before their councils or pension funds. It's nothing more than that.
To that end, Chair, can I suggest a slight amendment? Suggest that we put in consultation and where possible in agreement with, and to the point that if it is physically possible for you to have a dialogue, then that is had. But if there's something that comes up literally with like, I don't know, 10 minutes, you've got the option to to do that. And then we have obviously we'll have a report back as later detailed. Any decisions taken by the Section 155 officer will be reported to each of the pensions committee meetings. At that point, we can scrutinise whether that was done correctly. Was a suggestion.
Thank you for that. I think it's very difficult to have something which is where possible. That's all. I think it's either consultation or agreement. It has to be a black and white. So, Steve.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Just to make a point that the wording was intentional, because having had comments from legal colleagues before about previous wording about agreement, their view was that was not appropriate in a committee system to leave effectively the power to one person. So they suggested word consultation. I don't know whether Francis might want to comment, but that was kind of constitutionally in order with the committee system, as it were, was my understanding of what the legal were telling me.
Chair, thank you.
Louisa, and then Councillor Stewart,
And also Kirsty.
and then Kirsty. Go on.
No, I was just going to point out that we have stuff in our inbox every single day. So it's, as we all know, it's fast moving and there's a lot of meetings. So I think, as I say, just from a pragmatic perspective, obviously significant matters, but from a day to day, there's a meeting going on now that we're not part of. I just ask you to consider that this isn't just a case of we write the odd paper. There are meetings going on every day at the moment with matters, and it's quite complex with mapping of transitioning of assets. Timings are involved, lots of people, there's a lot of parties involved in this. We've got all sorts of contracts, etc. to work through. So I'm only adding that to try and help with your
So, and you're right, but at the moment, the committee is unrepresented in those discussions directly. So I'll go through the list of people. So I think it was Kirsty, and then Councillor Lever, and then Councillor Churchman. Kirsty.
I was simply going to observe that as a matter of process, Louise was absolutely right. There is huge amounts going on at the moment, but the delegation here is looking to immediately sign the two documents that are currently actively out for signature by your partner funds. The memorandum of understanding with Central, which will unlock your ability to actively participate in the discussions about the governance arrangements for that pool going forwards. And then the memorandum of understanding with your fellow access funds, which again unlocks the participation in the pooling summits and the discussions going on about the winding down and the transition of assets. The final decision about the terms of the new arrangements will still need to go to full council. That will be before 31st of March next year. So in making this delegation, that is not precluding the committee in total from considering those key documents going forwards and having input into those as appropriate.
So a question on timescale comes up here. We have I'll refer to it as a lockdown period prior to the elections in May, if they take place, where we cannot make forward binding other than if it's operational issues relating to the council's continued maintenance. Does that mean that we would be subject to agreeing this at full council prior to that lockdown period? Francis.
Thank you, Chair. I take a much broader view of the pre-election period, and I think councils can do a lot more than sometimes people think they can do, because I think these are just all operational decisions as I see it. So I wouldn't see the pre-election period precluding those type of decisions. I would not be concerned about that, Chair.
Okay, thank you. All right. Councillor Churchman.
I'm quite amazed. We are talking about £750 million, and it seems to me it's being treated as though it's £750 million. This is so much money that I can't even imagine the number of zeros at the end of it. And as I said, we're treating it as though, oh, well, you know, it's a bit, I'm sorry, £750 million needs all the effort that is required to get it right. Thank you.
Councillor Drew.
I mean, I think I see no issue once the decision, if the decision is made at full council, to trust two officers to make those everyday granular decisions. Quite frankly, I think it would almost be unworkable were there to be that back and forth. I think for me that the central issue is always, if full council makes a decision, frankly, allow the officers to get on with it. That would be my view. But I mean, I take Councillor Churchman's point, but I think it's a question of perspective as to whether we're talking about the real nitty gritty of these smaller decisions or much more ideologically focused headline type issues. So I would suggest we go to the vote on this.
So we'll leave it as it is, and it comes as a recommendation to full council. It's for them to decide again. All those in favour of that one? That's unanimous. Thank you. And the last one is item 19 then, which is that any decisions taken by the 151 officer in regard to joining of the central pool are reported back to each meeting of the pension committee. The only thing I seek to change here is that we have prior notification of those decisions, that they are going to be taken. I don't know how we can put that into effect. Knowing them at the next pension meeting could be a month or two later. How can we have contemporary updates that a decision is imminent? Maybe it may be that, you know, a press release is appropriate for a decision being made, or a contract being signed, or an announcement being made. It's very difficult to think in advance of what the circumstances might be. But rather than waiting to the next pension meeting, how can we have advanced knowledge that a major decision is about to be made?
I think we can include something about providing periodic updates to the committee on a electronic basis, for example, rather than holding, yeah.
So like a rather like a work plan then for an upcoming decisions which are imminent, and a timeline for those decisions to be made. So Stevens, you're edging to say something.
Tie ourselves into it or push ourselves into the corner here, but you know, need updates, but possibly by informal briefings or something akin to that. I don't know how you feel about that. Other members feel, but you know, obviously restricted to pension committee chair in advance, so that you deem whether we should meet together or whether we should just get a flyer type briefing. But if you can, once again, this comes back to liaising with lead officers on this, and then passing the information onto us, either in a forum such as this, or indeed a briefing whereby we can discuss informally amongst ourselves.
So the essence here is that decisions taken by the 151 officer in regard to joining the central decision are advised then to the planning committee prior to the completion of that agreement. Rather clumsy wording, but
I think, Chair, I you know, obviously you would discuss the situation with, you know, informally with committee members, but I wouldn't bother with too much of that. I would say through the chair of pensions committee or something.
So with the bottom bit being with prior notification to the chair of committee, and then I'd be able to take it back informally and discuss it.
Yeah.
So with that change, are we happy with that change? The last bit, I'll seek for a show of hands. That's a bit formally. 1, 2. We need to be specific on the wording here. It's an agreement, so that the decisions taken by the 151 officer in regard to joining the central pool are reported in advance to the decision being taken to the chair of the pension fund committee.
The chair of pension committee.
Okay, so everybody happy with that?
Chairman, could I make a suggestion that we use the word significant or a timetable of significant decision? Because I'm just a bit worried that there might be an awful lot of decision.
Well, these are only related to joining of the pool. They're not related to nitty gritties.
Yeah, it's the actual,
So if anything to do with the joining would be a significant issue, that's not a day-to-day debate or a negotiation issue. I will interpret it that way. All right, so again, just show of hands, everybody happy with that? Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, that's passed. And that concludes it. I'm going to thank you all for wrestling through this today. I know this has been very difficult and in some ways somewhat emotional, and it's been good to keep it on a very logical basis. Notwithstanding the sticks and guns analogies which we've dealt with. Steve smiling always encourages me. We move on now to the next step, which is full council. And I, for one, am not sure how full council will play this out. I'm waiting to see the representation to the chair of full council from the monitoring officer and the chair's response for his acquiescence, and I'll get that circulated as soon as I get it. And then it may be that members feel it appropriate to have some degree of a further informal discussion prior to the full council meeting, once they've had a chance to read the full council papers and look at the detail of those recommendations going to full council. But we'll take it step by step. And thank you very much for everybody who's joined us online today and to the officers here today. And before I wrap up, Louisa.
Oh no, sorry, I want to say, because the paper's gone out, hasn't it? It got published, the full council paper got published, so any of your amendments, I guess, I don't know the formalities with any changes from today. Okay, just so you're aware in case one panics and think, that's not what we agreed to do.
Okay.
If I might, I think in the council paper, we said there would be an update of today's deliberations. So possibly if we frame a paragraph and run that.
I'm sure Democratic Services are amply able to deal with that situation.
Yeah, there's no problem. We'll just do an addendum report to full council. There's no problem.
Okay. Nothing else for today?
Very quickly, I just wanted, to the extent that Councillor Lever's excellent idea of a press release, whether it might be helpful for full council for us to circulate something in the species of an opinion of this committee, which actually highlights potentially the plurality of views, because I think, notwithstanding my own principled opposition to a particular discrete point, so I appreciate that others don't necessarily have that qualm. And I think what I would be probably keen to emphasize, speaking for myself, would be the fact that, you know, this is the reality and them's the facts, but ultimately it's down for every colleague to vote the way that they feel is going to be expedient and pragmatic, because I think we've covered so much within closed session, and the ability for us, as we know at full council, sometimes to get through what is quite a substantive workload effectively. It might be helpful to put something like that out. I don't know, it's just an idea.
Councillor Lever.
Just on that point, sorry, I don't want to keep us any longer. I think on full council, I guess it's up to us as committee members to express the views that we've put here today. During that discussion, I don't know if there'd be a bit of a preamble from yourself, Chair, to sort of wrap up the views that we've expressed before we get into the discussion. I don't know if that opportunity will be there. And then following that, I think where I was thinking with the press release was more around once the decision is made by full council, assuming a decision is made and it's not a decision to not make a decision again. If a decision is made, then the accompanying press release would be one of the obviously detailing the decision, but obviously a bit of a preamble again of we didn't want to be here, but this is the status we find ourselves in. But we are also I don't know if excited is the term to use, but we're excited at the prospect of working with the new pool, because I don't want the frustration at the position we're in to be reflective in the working relationship we want to build with a potential pool that if we decide to go with them, we do make. I don't want those two things need to be separate for me.
So it may be that we consider two then. One is about the situation we're in, and the other one is following the decision being made, that more positive aspect regarding Central. It would be difficult to have the two in one press release. One's intensely negative, the other one's trying to be intensely positive.
I
Rather
think
perverse.
Yeah, you could. I mean, I think I was just canvassing as to whether there would be a unanimous support for that. But I think I totally take on board Councillor Lee's point that it's ultimately for up to us to advocate for our respective positions, and hopefully things will be handled well. Such at full council, we can do that at length and robustly, and leave it at that. It was just,
I'm sure.
yeah.
All right.
We,
So with
we have had press inquiries yesterday saying, can you get back to us on what happens today already? So the press is interested.
it's always nice of the press take an interest in the proceedings of the Pension Fund Committee. All right. So with that, then we'll close the meeting. Thank you very much indeed, people.